Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Asong Pou. I'm teaching in Arya Mahila PG College in the Department of Philosophy. Today I'm going to discuss on cogito ergo sum, Descartes' philosophy. Before we go into the lecture, let me just pose you one question or a kind of situation that almost all of us come across in our lives. That is, have you been cheated by anyone? Or have you been fooled by anyone? Or have you been in a situation where you can't decide what to do? Or have you ever been not knowing what to do in your lives or in whatever circumstances? If you have faced that kind of problem in our life, or if you were in that kind of situation, what do you do? Or what do I do? Do we just shrug it off and then just move ahead? Or do we sit down and think what went wrong or what must have been the case? So here is a topic that we are going to discuss today. That's going to help us to understand, or what should we do if we have certain doubts, or if we have been fooled by someone else, or have been cheated by somebody else. So today's topic is cogito ergo sum, which is otherwise also known as the method of doubt that has been given by René Descartes. Now let's go to understand, let's get to know who René Descartes is. He is a French philosopher. He belongs to the 17th century, and he is not just a philosopher, but a mathematician and a scientist. And he is considered to be the father of modern Western philosophy. So, as a philosopher, his philosophy comes under rationalism, and he is considered as a rationalist. And when we say rationalist or rationalism, we are dealing with the theory which concern with the origin of knowledge. How do we acquire knowledge, or how do we get knowledge? So, as far as the theory is concerned, the rationalism, they say that we acquire knowledge not from experience or any other sources, but through reason or intellect. So it has nothing to do with the so-called sense experience, but we get knowledge only through reason. That is what we call rationalism, and that's the school which Descartes belong as far as philosophy is concerned. And now, whenever we do or undertake anything, there is always a reason behind that. Whenever we have a doubt, we always try to clear out that particular doubt. Likewise, what motivated or what made Descartes do this so-called method of doubt? Why did he have to undertake such a huge step and criticize about his own predecessors or his own contemporaries by saying that there is nothing that is so sure of in the philosophy? Now he wants to establish some kind of a system where everything will find its source. That is to say, he wants to build a kind of foundation on which every belief systems or anybody's philosophy can rely on. So in order to find that, or in order to establish that kind of philosophy, being a mathematician, he actually wants philosophy in that kind of model, where no one will be able to pose any further questions. Rather, by reading that particular philosophy, they will be able to understand the current issue or the concerned topic that is being discussed or that is being read by anyone. So now, as far as his problem is concerned, he was not happy with the state of philosophy in his time. As a young boy, he wrote in his book, as a young boy, whenever he reads any book or he study anything, he always find some kind of loopholes or a question always crops up in his mind. But since he was young enough, or since he was too young to question about somebody's philosophy or somebody's standpoint, he was reluctant to write about this particular topic. But in 1946, he published a book that is Meditations on First Philosophy. In that book, he feels that he is matured enough or good enough to understand or content with the other philosophers' view. That is how he made, or that is what prompted him to write this particular book. And it's only the first section of the book that we are going to discuss today. And now, like I have already said, what was his problem? His problem was nothing but not happy with others' philosophy. There was always something false. There was always something like not so certain about anything. So what is he doing? He is trying to do something. He is trying to come up with kind of foundation which cannot be refuted by anybody else. He wants to lay a kind of foundation stone on which all the philosophy or every philosophy can rely on. So next, let's go on to his. There are certain self-guidance rules which Descartes has laid down for his own, so that whatever he do, he will be able to carry out his work in such a way that there will be nothing to be objected by any future thinker or philosophers. So what are the rules that he has laid down? Number one, I will just paraphrase it. The number one rule that he has already laid down is never to accept anything. Never to accept anything which has not been certain, which he does not know clearly. If there is certain doubt, if there is even a slight doubt, he will not accept that particular propositions or knowledge claim as true. Therefore, the number one point that he wants to be sure of in any undertaking is to rule out anything that is not so clear and not so certain. Now, the next thing that he points out is divide up. If there is any difficulties, or if you are undertaking any project or any problem that you're dealing with, divide up. If we use the medical terms, we can use the so-called dissection. If we are using it in the medical terminology, we dissect all the parts into so small that we can easily understand what is going on. So likewise, according to Descartes, if you have any problem, divide all the problems into small parts, or as many parts as possible. Okay? So now, after that, what do we do? The third point that he wants to say is, after dividing everything into a small parts, start not just with any one, but start with the simplest and the easiest one. That is going to help you, that is going to help us understand the concept very well. Otherwise, if we start with something complex, we may not be able to understand the whole process, or it may not be that productive. That is why he wants to start with something which is the easiest, which is something which we can understand easily. So step by step we start from the easiest one and proceed on to the complex one. So now next, the fourth one that he wants to do is, after dividing up everything and studying about all those things, we don't just leave things out there, but we start writing them down. We start writing them down one by one so meticulously so that not even a single thing is missed out. We don't want to omit any important points, because even the slightest, forget about a word, even a comma or any exclamation mark makes lots of difference. Therefore, we need to be, like he said, in every case, make the enumeration so complete that I might be assured that nothing was omitted. So those are the 4 self-guidance rules as far as Descartes is concerned. He wants us to, or this is what he keeps at the back of his mind as he undertakes. So let us assume, or for sure that we know that he applied all these self-guidance rules as he undertake his method of doubt. What is his method? Now let's study about his method. What is his method? In philosophy, when we talk about Descartes' method or Descartes' method of doubt, some people wants to call it, or some call it as a Cartesian doubt or radical skepticism. But here I'm more happy with the term systematic doubt or systematic method of doubt, because when we say systematic method of doubt, and why I am comfortable or why I want to agree more with this term is, in fact, as a matter of fact, Descartes was not necessarily like doubting about anything and everything in reality. What he wants to do by using this method is trying to find some logical and coherent way which does not conflict or which will not contradict. That is why he is using, or he is undertaking this method of doubt to prove something which cannot be contradicted, to prove something which can be reliable, not just now, but even in the days to come. So, what he wanted to do, or what he wanted to develop through this method, is a kind of model where every philosophy or every knowledge can rely upon. So he has designed a method through which he wanted to test anything and everything that can be doubted until he finds a certainty or truth. So next point that we can discuss about his method is, or what he wants to incorporate in his method is, if there is even a slightest doubt, such belief should be discarded. Like we have already discussed before, if there is something, if anybody or if anything has fooled us or befooled us, we should think twice. We should not just openly or with open arms go and embrace somebody who has already cheated us or fooled us, deceived us. Likewise, if there is anything that we have that we are not so sure of, we should always let go of such propositions, or even our own, to be like practical to those people who does not trust us or who fools us. Yeah, his method is like sorting the good ones and the bad ones in the large barrel of apple. People often we use the same example of a potato bag, a bag of potato, or in a bag of potato, if there is any rotten potato, or in the bag of apple, if there is any rotten one, what do? We we pick up all the rotten ones and throw away. And why do we do that? Because we don't want the rotten one to be there, because it's going to spoil the race of the good one. Therefore, we want to avoid doing that. So, in order to find a knowledge which is universal or reliable, what we have to do is, in philosophy, what we have to do is, if there is anything which is contradicting or which does not go along with the subject, we need to just leave away all those subject matter. And now, how do we study or how do we understand his method? We can classify his method into three parts. That is, the first part is like questioning about our sense experience. He was questioning about our sense experiences, that is, as far as knowledge is concerned. What do our senses do? Or how do we gain knowledge? And the next point that we can classify them is, he questioned about the reality of an external world by using the dream argument. He finds that dream and dreaming state and waking state doesn't seem to be different that much. How do we know that we are not dreaming? So let's go, we'll come back to that part later on. And then the third argument is the malicious demon. He introduced about the concept of malicious demon, whose work is nothing but to trick anyone. So these are the three arguments which we are going to deal with today. By the end of this discussion, I'm sure, and I hope that everyone understands what I'm trying to convey here. So let's discuss about his first argument. He doubted our senses or our sense experience, or we call it empirical knowledge, or as we have, I don't know if you have already heard about this, but there is a theory called empiricism, which states that knowledge is gained only through sense experience or through perception. So now, when Descartes said, but Descartes wants to criticize, or Descartes wants to oppose to that particular statement. He believes that sense experience, we don't gain knowledge through sense experience, but rather only through our reason. And particularly why he has to object about the origin of knowledge, or how do we gain knowledge through sense experience. He gives an example, or he says that all those knowledge that are acquired either from or through the senses are doubtable. He says, it is a mark of prudence never to place our complete trust in those who have deceived us even once. We have already mentioned about that. So now, what does that mean? And let's give an example, or why is he so concerned about our sense experience? Why is he not happy with the product of the sense experience or the knowledge that we gain through our senses? We can use the example, or we can understand this very criticism by using some of our day-to-day experiences which we have come across. I believe that we have come across all these things, and you must be aware of all these things. Like, we can give the example of a railway track. Imagine that you are standing, or if you stand in the middle of a track, how do we find? If you look one way, you find that the railway track seems to be appearing smaller and smaller as it goes farther. So now, what does it mean? What does that tell you? What does that tell us? Do the track actually come closer and closer as it goes farther? We know that it is not. It is because of the sight. We are limited, our vision is limited to a certain distance only. So the so-called gap between the railway track starts appearing as it goes farther. That is one example why we can say that our senses cannot be trusted completely. Another example that we can talk about is a tree appears smaller in a distance. But if we come closer, we know that that tree is not as small as it is seen from a far distance. So that is another example. And another example is if we put a pencil in a glass of water, how do we see? How do a pencil appears? It appears bended. But when we lift it up that again, does it bend? Is it crooked? No, it is not. Because it's a refraction from a scientific point of view. It is due to refraction, the pencil appears bended. Otherwise, it is straight only. That is also another example. And he often talks about like illusions, hallucinations, mirage, or even during sickness, food tastes differently, not like it used to be. So, from all this point, he is trying to say that our senses are unreliable. They cannot be trusted. If it has deceived us even once, or if we find any clue that can be doubted, slightest thing that can be doubted, that cannot be accepted. That is what Descartes has already said, or that is what we have already discussed in the beginning. So that is why he said that senses cannot be relied on. Then the next point that we can discuss is dream argument. Now, when we say dream argument, actually, he is questioning about the physical state at the moment. For example, now I'm talking to you. Now you're listening to me. Is this really happening now? Or is this happening in our dream? Is this happening in my dream? Or is this happening in your dream? So the dream argument is about the confusion. Sort of like, even in dream, we see the same thing as in reality or as in a waking state. Are we dreaming or are we awake? He gives the example of his own experience at his home, like he would be sitting by the fire on a chair and then reading his book. And as he do that, sometimes it so happened that he would just doze off. And when he wakes up, during his sleep, he used to have a dream that he is sitting by the fire or reading all those things as he usually used to do during a waking state. So, but when he wakes up, he realized that, it was not, I was not reading or reading something, sitting or reading something, but rather I was dreaming about all those things only. So therefore, what Descartes wants to say, what Descartes wants to say is, things in our dream and in our waking state, they don't, like the table that I am leaning on or the chair that I'm sitting on, even if in my dream, if I see a table or a chair, it will not be of any different shape, but the same shape that we used to see in our reality only, or in our waking state. Therefore, what Descartes wants to say or prove is that things appear similar in both dreaming and waking stages. And sometimes, as far as dream is concerned, we often dream that in our dream, we are dreaming. Sort of like layers of dream we used to have in our dream. So, how do we know that I am sitting here at the moment? Maybe I'm just dreaming. So, it looks so real that we cannot distinguish whether we are awake or dreaming. That is what he wants to say. So, like I have already said, things like a table or things like a chair or fire or whatever, be it in the waking state or be it in the dreaming state, we experience it as the same thing. From that dream argument, he wants to go further, and what he wants to do by going further is from there on, by questioning the sense experiences and then comparing the dreaming state and the waking state to be similar and not being able to differentiate between them. Now he proceeds on to the concept of malicious demon. He says, or let's say, there is no God, but only demon, or rather a malicious or an evil demon, and whose work and who is really good in tricking people or cheating people. So now what Descartes wants to make us understand by introducing the concept of malicious demon is who knows? Like we have already said, we doubted about our sense experience, we doubted about even the dreaming state and the waking state. But he says there must be something which we cannot doubt, or there must be something which is is true, not just for you and for me, but it is universally. So he, being a mathematician and a scientist, like we have already said in the previous section, he said that being a mathematician, he is influenced very much by by mathematics. So he wants to develop philosophy in such a way that it would function, it would work like mathematics, where people will always find a solution, where people will always understand from what we draw the kind of solution. So he said that in mathematics, or the so-called mathematics proposition, for instance, let's just use one example, 2 plus 5. 2 plus, let's say 2 plus 5 equals, 2 plus 3, excuse me. Yeah, 2 plus 3 equals to 5. Everybody knows that 2 plus 3 equals to 5, and that can never be wrong. But now here is the role of the malicious demon, and the reason why Descartes wants to introduce into this section. According to Descartes, the role of malicious demon is to, according to Descartes, the role of malicious demon is to trick us. So now, like we have already said, there is no God, but only a malicious demon. So now Descartes is saying that 2 plus 3 is equal to 5. But if that is not, let's say that there is a demon, and that demon is tricking us, that demon is making us to believe that this is the real case. But actually, in reality, the so-called 2 plus 3 is actually 4. So now he is questioning anything and everything that we believe. Anything and everything that we believe, are we being tricked? Am I thinking that now I'm giving a lecture? Or are you being fooled by a malicious demon that you are listening to a lecture? But now but from this malicious demon, what kind of conclusions that he wants to drive or draw is this: if there is a malicious demon, and if he is deceiving me, and if he is tricking me into believing that 2 plus 3 equals to 5, but which is actually 4, then there must be someone, there must be something that the demon is deceiving it. So now the next point that we can come to is, if there is a demon and if he is deceiving, that deceiving, in order to deceive, there must be someone, there must be something that the devil has to deceive. So even for an evil demon, there has to be someone to be deceived. So now, in a very brief way, we can say this, like, I cannot doubt that I am doubting. I cannot doubt that I am doubting. And what does doubt implies? To doubt is to think. I am thinking or I'm doubting about my existence at the moment. Do I exist? Or do you exist? Now, the next thing that we can understand is, why do we think? Or thinking, if somebody is thinking, that thinking implies that there is a thought about something. And all these things are possible only if there is someone who is thinking. So, as he draws his conclusion, he wants to say that I am nothing but a thinking thing. So I exist as a thinking thing. I therefore, I think, therefore I am. Otherwise, it is to say I think because I exist because I am a thinking thing, or I exist as a thinking thing. So, in conclusion, let's say what Descartes wanted to say was, before he start anything, he wants to first start about his own existence. He wants to make sure that there is something which he can rely on, or to prove that there is certain principle or certain propositions which cannot be denied or which cannot be refuted by anything. So what is now cogito ergo sum? Cogito is a self-evident truth which is drawn from clear and distinct criterion. It is a proof directed towards the skeptics and agnostics that knowledge is possible. And lastly, it is an axiom which is indubitable and irrefutable. That is what Descartes wants to believe, or that is what Descartes believed in his own method of doubt and in his own result. So that is cogito ergo sum, or otherwise it is also called as like the Descartes method of doubt. And thank you everyone for listening to me. Yeah, thank you everyone.